Hey everybody, Jay Glazer bringing you another episode of Guidance by Glazer. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful June 14th. I know the exact date because tomorrow, June 15th, I will be at the US Open at Shinnecock Hills and I'm very excited for that. So we are primed and ready to give you another Guidance by Glazer episode. And today's episode, little different topic. Does size matter? And what I'm referring to is the truth about square feet as it relates to the size of an apartment. For all you dirty minds out there, get your heads out of the gutter. So, does size matter? The reason I wanted to talk about this is because a local real estate publication called The Real Deal actually produced an interesting article this week about the penthouse at 443 Greenwich Street, which is one of the more landmark marquee condo conversions of the last few years in the northern part of Tribeca. It's a star-studded building. Most of the homes average around $10 million, so it's a very expensive property, has a lot of attention on it, and the penthouse recently sold for a very, very healthy price tag, and one of the comments that came up is that the penthouse was listed at 8,569 square feet. That was the legal sellable square footage of the home, but in actuality, the net livable square footage of the home was 7,232 square feet. So it begs the question, why isn't it the exact same square footage? Why isn't the sellable square footage the same as the livable square footage? So that kind of is the emphasis and the impetus, I should say, of today's discussion. So the reality is almost every single apartment in New York City, and quite frankly, this is a technical term in the commercial world, but every single apartment in New York City has what's called a loss factor. So the loss factor, very simply, is the difference between the gross sellable square footage and the net livable square footage, meaning you could be buying a home that is 1,000 square feet as advertised, but in reality, when you really get down to the livable square footage of the home, it could be 800 square feet. I myself grew up in an apartment in Greenwich Village that was sold to my parents, and then when I sold it as the same square footage that my parents bought it as 2330 square feet. But when you broke it down and looked at the net livable square footage, meaning certain measurements that don't actually help you live in the space, i.e. the window frames and things of that nature, the net livable was around 1950. So there was over a 300 square foot loss factor. So that's really important when it comes to the size of a home, because in reality, every home has a certain loss factor. So when you are buying square footage, know that you are buying what I truly believe to be an arbitrary number. You're buying just the sellable square footage. It's quite frankly a number that in some regards is really pulled out of thin air. This is particularly true for those who buy in cooperatives. As many of you know, when you buy in New York City in a cooperative, this is a corporation. Therefore, like anything with a corporation, you get issued shares. You actually get a stock certificate at the closing table as opposed to a deed. There's no block and lot number. There is no formal ownership the way you do in a condo, a single family home, or any type of property outside of New York City, really, for that matter. In a co-op, you are allocated a certain number of shares. Now, you've heard that before. You might say, well, you're still getting an apartment. Yes, that is true, but how is that relevant in this discussion? The answer is you do not know what the square footage is of the home you are buying. In fact, it is now illegal to market a square footage in a cooperative apartment. Now, it happens all the time. We are all guilty of doing it, and you see it time and time again, but whatever square footage that person has marketed is a number that they've come up with through their own formula. Maybe it was the professional floor planner who came in and measured. Maybe they had an architectural remodel and the architect gave them that square footage. Maybe they had the apartment appraised and the appraiser came in and gave them that square footage. Or maybe they just decided they wanted to make a number up and say, this is the square footage of my home. I tell you, in all honesty, all of those options have gone into giving a square footage to a cooperative apartment. So as a result, you really don't know what you're getting when you buy in a co-op. Now, you don't really know what you're getting when you buy in a condo, but having said that, you can at least market the condo the same way you bought it. You cannot market a co-op arbitrarily based off some number that you don't really know where it originates. So one of the issues with square footage is we really don't know how it's measured. What was the formula for measuring? Did it include closets, right? Are closets considered livable square footage? I certainly don't live in a closet. I don't think anybody on my team lives in a closet. Certainly our apartments can often be times construed as small enough to be considered a closet, but that's a totally different discussion for another day. But the reality is, closets are not livable square footage. Now, they're incredibly important for those of us who like fashion and have a lot of clothes. Closets are critically important to our way of living, but they're not livable square footage. The same thing about a window frame. You often walk into a home and you'll see a window and you'll see about 6 to 8 inches of space between the window frame and the actual floor of the apartment that you can walk into. That's a lot of square footage that's being eaten up in the home. Is that livable square footage? Are you going to sleep on your windowsill and get a good night's rest? Probably not. And yet that oftentimes is included in the formula for livable square footage. So the reason why square footage can be so arbitrary in New York City is because there are so many different formulas for measuring the square footage. Now, why is this important in the context of buying a home? The reality is, over the last, call it 10 to 12 years, the transparency of the market has become so relevant, so important, because data is now so accessible, right? Buyers are going on websites like StreetEasy and other databases to accrue as much information about homes as possible. And as a result, they've really gone overboard with price per square foot analyses, right? Everybody wants to talk about the price per square footage. What's the price per square foot of that home? Well, when I measure this price per square foot is much more than that price per square foot. Listen, in addition to not knowing how apartments are measured, especially in a co-op, every home is different. Sure, the price per square foot of the 5th floor apartment in one building might be $200 more than the 4th floor, but maybe the 5th floor clears all of the buildings around it, has a direct view of the Empire State Building, and has the most amazing sunlight in the morning, versus the 4th floor stares directly into a brick wall. Wouldn't you consider paying $200 more per square foot for that home? I certainly would. So the reality is, in addition to having all of these jumbled up different formulas for measuring square feet, we also get super obsessed with a price per square foot analysis that means absolutely nothing. I have always advocated for my clients to not focus on the size of the home, right? This is the sort of the joke in my topic of, does size matter? For me, I really believe that when you buy a home and you're considering a home, does it feel right? Do the rooms feel right? Does the property check off the boxes that you're looking for? Just because a home might be listed at 1,000 square feet and you have this arbitrary number in your head that you won't buy a home under 1,200 square feet, I guarantee you there are homes listed as 1,200 square feet in New York City that are smaller than homes listed at 1,000 square feet because of the points I just previously listed. So when you go into a home, make sure you focus on feel. Make sure you focus on how it makes you feel and whether it feels like the right home, because if that's what you're getting from a home, if it feels like the right home, then to me that is far more important than some arbitrary price per square foot analysis. Now, just to come full circle, if you are doing a condo, if you are purchasing a condo or selling a condo, listen, price per square foot is relevant. You want to make sure you're into the right price per square foot for value. Having said that, it's still an arbitrary size, right? You're still buying some made-up size that some developer was able to get approved for some sort of loophole. So if the home feels right, but the square footage might not be exactly what you're expecting, screw it. Just buy the home. Trust your feelings. Trust your instinct. I, for one, am a very big advocate of putting this price per square foot obsession out the window and getting back to what we think is a home that works for us, not a home that checks off the numerical boxes. That is today's topic. I just wanted to bring that to you after I read this article. I thought it was something relevant. Price per square foot becomes more and more prominent in our experiences as brokers, buyers and sellers, renters, landlords, all of those things. So let's remember, at the end of the day, the price per square foot and the square footage of homes is truly arbitrary. It's frustrating to say the least, but arbitrary nevertheless. So let's focus on our feelings and how we feel about a home, and that might help us push us back to a more reasonable understanding of the marketplace. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.